Hey guys, and welcome back to Generation Y. Today I thought I would just drop a little bit of information in your hands and you could do with it what you like. So obviously, going back maybe 3 or 4 days after the start of the Ukraine-Russia conflict, I'm not sure we're allowed to call it a war, we started hearing some rumblings as the Russians began to encroach on certain parts of the Ukraine that maybe there were some more of these US-funded labs in the Ukraine. I'm sorry, Dan. In Ukraine. And 11 of them are in the east, which is obviously where Putin seems to be headed. And initially, the first couple of days, everyone was like, wow, this is just conspiracy. But then the actual Secretary of State, Victoria Nuland, has now told us that this is in fact the truth. So I kind of found that fairly amazing. But what they did by trying to admit something that they would have to admit, because when this is, if Putin does take over those cities where they're in, and then he shows all the details and all the funding, they would obviously try and smear that as best they could, as they should. Listen, everyone's trying to run their own country to the best that they can. But when that information becomes available, I guess the best they could do is try and be like, no, that's not true. Or they could do what they're doing now, which is to admit it. I can't remember what it's called. Something like the big, not the big sell, but like the big lie outweighs the small lie, or the big news outweighs the small news. And so that's essentially what they did. They kind of admitted it in the first couple of sentences, and then went on to cloud people's mind with something that's definitely a possibility, but probably unlikely. Anyway, I'll let you have a look.
Well, I only have a minute left. Let me ask you, does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
I'm sure you're aware that the Russian propaganda groups are already putting out there all kinds of information about how they've uncovered a plot by the Ukrainians to release biological weapons in the country and with NATO's coordination. If there's a biological or chemical weapon incident or attack inside of Ukraine, is there any doubt in your mind that 100% it would be the Russians that would be behind it?
There is no doubt in my mind, Senator, and it is classic Russian technique to blame on the other guy what they're planning to do themselves.
So that was kind of crazy. So would you say that it's 1,000,000% certain that if anything bad happens anywhere ever, it's the Russians? Yes, I would. That's exactly what I would say. Oh, that's perfect. Well, thank you for that. Okay, fine. Well, I guess when you're at war, I'm not sure why we need to be in eternal conflict with certain countries. But anyway, so they kind of admitted that, then they went on to say, but, if anything bad happens with those places, it's not our fault. And I kind of put that to the back of my mind. I was like, yeah, fine, all's fair in another war. And then the very next day, which is today, I get an email from one of many news sources that they send me, and it is this. So, Telegraph front page, Putin plotting chemical weapons attack in Ukraine. Interesting. It's almost like they know something, or they're trying to prepare people for something that could happen, and if it does, they don't want to be the ones that look bad. I would say that, if there is a stray missile or something that hits one of these biolabs, and then something is leaked, and then we have another, I suppose at best, maybe it could be even worse, but at best another 2 years of pandemic because of that, or something even worse. That obviously there is no blame put in that direction. So let's have a look. Putin plotting chemicals weapons attack in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin is plotting to use chemical weapons in Ukraine. Western officials fear after his Air Force bombed a maternity hospital. It would be a maternity hospital. I'm sure that's exactly what it was. I'm sure they targeted a maternity hospital. In a depraved attack that shocked the world, there is now serious concern that the Russian president will order an utterly horrific attack using chemical or biological weapons. Or biological weapons. Oh, well, that's handy, because that's exactly what we just found out that's being funded on the Ukraine, in Ukraine, on the eastern side, where Putin is visiting, let's say. So that's handy. I thought it was just chemical. As Moscow ramped up allegations that Kiev itself is planning to deploy them in the battlefield, it comes after the Russian leader was accused of crossing the line of humanity following an airstrike on a children's hospital. I'm not sure anyone could convince me differently that almost any world leader, including Putin, for as bad as he can be, would target a maternity hospital. I just think that's the stuff of Hollywood and propaganda. During a ceasefire in the besieged city of Mariupol, which is again in the southeast, Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine's president, accused Russia of genocide. I believe 580 people have died so far. Of genocide in a passionate address on Telegram last night. Read how Russia sank to a new low as Putin made war on mothers and babies. Mothers and babies. Putin is coming for mothers and babies. So anyway, I guess my point is just, I've had people say, are you siding with Russia? I'm not siding with Russia at all. What I'm trying to do is, in a world where people are doused in information all from one source or all from one standpoint, I'm just trying to make people aware when they're being played, like when they are being the useful idiots. Maybe I'm being a useful idiot or an unuseful idiot or a useless idiot. Probably that one. But yeah, I'm just trying to give people more information. I'm amazed. I understand, but I'm amazed how many people didn't even know that Ukraine has been bombing other Ukrainians for the last 8 years, and that there's been civil war in the southeast for the last 8 years. Many people didn't know that. And then, of course, a lot of people didn't know about Ukraine's gas and oil and whatnot. So, no, I'm certainly not on Russia's side. I'd never take the side, or rarely take the side of any country that is invading another country. But I can't help but think, to compare it relatively evenly, let's take America and switch it with Russia. Let's say China, they're the sort of number one opponent, let's say, number one rival. China, over a period of 25 years, gradually allies with every country but two in the entire American continent, both south and north. So continents. Allies with every single one but two. They gradually move weapons into, Brazil and Venezuela and Cuba, let's say. Jamaica, how about that? And America keeps kind of pushing back a little bit, but there's not much they can do. And then, if they do something mildly inappropriate, then they're sanctioned by half of the countries in the world. They're struggling, let's say America is struggling to keep their economy going. And then China moves missiles into Mexico and Canada. And then they start funding biological weapons laboratories on the California or Texan-Mexico border. I just think, at what point is provocation, causing a lot of this? I don't understand why we needed to have, I say we as NATO, why we've needed to have bioweapons labs on Russia's doorstep. I can't imagine that that's helped. Anyway, I'm probably wrong. Let me know what you think. Hopefully you're keeping yourself abreast of, different sides. It's really hard. You have to be really, really active to try and get information that isn't just from that kind of establishment toe the line side. I just think, as well, almost with every war that we've been in, sort of major conflict, let's say, of the last 30 years, so going back to Gulf War, at the time, everybody back then, especially like 9/11, everyone was like, yeah, of course we've got to go into Iraq and whatever. Of course we should be sending everything over there. And then a year later, everybody was like, maybe, do we have to do that? And then 2 years later, everyone was like, oh, that information was fake. Oh. And then a couple of years later, some more things come out and more things. I just think that in today's day and age of information, we should be able to do the stuff that took us a few years. We should be able to do it quicker. So instead of just believing all of these informations, and I get it, it's their job to defend, not just the safety of their people, but their economy. So the CIA is not just there to protect Americans, it's there to protect American interests. And the same with the UK. The MI6 is not just there to protect Bill Johnson or, I don't know, Sadiq Khan down the road. They're there to protect UK interests. And I just think that maybe this time we can use the fact, even though there's a lot of censorship going on, we can try and do our best to get ahead of these things in real time. Or, in this case, it was maybe 2 days between me thinking, that sounds a bit over the top, like there's no way America would do something like that, and then to within 2 days, because so many people had found out about it, they had to come forward and admit it. I'm just hoping we can do something like that this time. But yeah. Anyway, thanks guys, and I will see you again soon.
Winston stopped writing, partly because he was suffering from cramp. He did not know what had made him pour out this stream of rubbish